Now, I think as lots of us know, perhaps only too well, loneliness, especially later on in life, can be a particularly tricky problem for those without friends and family nearby. In Bristol, the big lottery, they thought it was so important that they actually provided a significant amount of money to help deliver a programme which identifies the best ways of reducing isolation and loneliness of older people in the city. And already the money's been spent on a variety of different community-based projects, things like organising film shows, helping to purchase sewing machines, all as a way of getting people together, really. Now that the 5-year project is well underway, the organisers of the Bristol Ageing Better programme, they're pretty keen to keep building on this momentum and to start introducing some new and creative ideas for the future. And they definitely want your input on this. So if you can help out, please keep listening. Adam Rees is the director of Bristol Ageing Better, or BAB for short, and is here in the studio this morning. Welcome along to the programme. Good to see you, Adam. When it feels like this is something we've talked about a fair bit around isolation and well-being, but still it's one of those things that is requiring a bit of work to tackle, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that when we talk about tackling it, it's about making sure that you're solving it for people who are currently lonely, but also you're putting things in place for people who are at risk of being isolated or lonely as well, because it's something that can affect all of us quite easily, depending on people in your life or where you live. So actually making some changes and preparing yourself for old age, or preparing yourself for isolation and loneliness, is really important.
What kind of stories do you hear then about people who are isolated? What do they tell you? I just wonder.
Yeah, I think that with us, people who talk to us who've been lonely and now engaging with us say about little things that can really make a difference. So if you've injured your leg or you've fallen, suddenly you're less likely to go out, so you're less likely to see people. And sometimes it's that level of social contact that people want. So just seeing a newsagent every day is a big thing to some people, but also other people like to engage. So what we try and do is to make sure that people get the social contact they want. Because for you or I, we might want to see somebody once or twice a day, where some people might only want to see somebody once a week, or other people want to see somebody a bit more. So we try and provide the right things to offer for that, whether it be social activities, kind of, coffee mornings and things, or something more interactive and more activity based. We've just funded a water activities project in the harbour side with older people, so canoeing and things like that.
That's brilliant. Yeah. In terms of just picking up on the isolation side of things, do you think, you work with people who are over 50? Over 50, okay. Do you think, though, in general, that actually we've become, weirdly, a little bit more isolated and disconnected in some ways? Yes, we're all social media connected, of course we are. But I say that slightly tongue-in-cheek, but at the same time, it's sort of weird that, in a way, I think generally there's this strange isolation that can still exist.
Yeah, and I think social media and internet have made it more difficult for older people to be connected. So actually, when we look at just using the website, or we just use things online, then actually the people who don't have access to that have got less access to those services and connections. So I think I like to use the internet, and I like to use things like Twitter and Facebook, but not everybody does. So what we've been trying to do with our services and our partner services is making sure they're accessible through printouts and newsletters, so that you're actually getting to the people who are most at risk of isolation and loneliness.
Yeah. So how much progress do you think has been made? I know Bristol is your focus, but in this area around helping to tackle isolation and to improve well-being?
The BAB has been going for just over a year now, and a lot of it has been about getting the right partners in place. So we've got, as you said earlier, we've got £6 million from the Big Lottery Fund, and that's going out to different charities and third sector organisations in Bristol to do the activities. Like
what kind of ones? What names might we have heard of?
Well, we're working with organisations like Linkage, who do a lot of work with older people. There's a great organisation called Alive that do work with in care homes and do activities and things like that in there. We've also been doing some work with groups that you wouldn't necessarily connect with older people. So Bristol Drugs Project is a project we're doing a group work thing with at the moment. So we've got people who've got alcohol issues and who are in recovery, who are acting as champions for other people to try and talk to them about how alcohol actually created the isolation for them. So it's trying to look at how do we engage with those people that you wouldn't normally think about. You've all got a stereotype of kind of an older isolated person in your head, and that's a stereotype for a reason. But actually, there are other ways of being isolated that we need to tackle.
And I've got to be honest, in my head, if I think older person, I'm thinking much older than 50.
Yes,
I'm thinking more like 85.
So our programme works with over 50 with the ideas we said about early intervention. So how can we work with people between 50 and 70 to prepare them so when they're older that they're not isolated? So one of our projects we'll be doing in the next couple of months is called Preparing for Later Life, and it's kind of pre-retirement courses. So making sure that people can think about what they need to do for themselves when they retire. So volunteering, keeping active, so you're not just in the house on your own, really makes those differences. So the interventions we're doing are generally focused on the much older people.
How receptive do you find people are to thinking about that?
I think there's two different groups of people we work with. People who are really interested in this to tackle because they care about the issue.
Yeah. But
then the people who are actually isolated and lonely, there's a lot of barriers to them engaging. So what we need to try and do is work with both. We want to get people involved because they care about their neighbours and friends and family. But what we also need to try and do is provide the right service for those people who are really isolated and try and connect them in, whether we connect them through GP surgeries or we connect them in through hairdressers, those kind of activities, trying to find places they go that might be their only contact in a week.
It's true. And also, you know, something that makes me feel incredibly sad to think about is when you hear someone who is older, and I'm thinking, okay, more towards 80s, but who feels like, and I think there might even be a bit of a generational thing around this, that because they're old, you should focus on young people. Don't give your resources to me. It's okay, you know, fine. Give it to the young. You don't need to bother with me. Do you come across that?
Yeah, we very much do. And I think that what we've tried to do in this is to incorporate those people in and start to look at how do we try and do both. So one of our projects is called Learning for Later Life Together, and that's about taking older people who've got a skill or a story and trying to encourage them and empowering them to get back into the community by sharing that with younger people. So it might be someone who knows is good at gardening, has got skills and is actually working on that project. So is showing people in Windmill Hill City Farm how they can plant different ideas and plant different things, or working in schools and telling them stories about the area. So you're empowering that older person by getting them to work with younger people.
Yeah, I am a big fan of the sort of intergenerational, basically older and younger people coming together and sharing the skills and the knowledge and coming with, you know, energy and enthusiasm. And it's like a really good mixture. I got my gran fairly recently. She said, oh, it's before Christmas actually, so not that long ago. But she said, what did I want for Christmas? And I said, and I knew that she couldn't organise too much, and I just said, actually, I'd really like you to help me fix my slippers, which involves some wool and stitching and stuff, and show me how to do it. And so that's what we did, and it was really, and that was great.
Yeah, exactly.
Much better, you know, than anything else she could have given me.
One of our other projects is called Community Kickstart, and we're giving out pots of money up to £2,000 to buy goods and services for community groups and activities to tackle isolation and loneliness. And that example is one of the ones that we're looking at, is how do we engage a group. So there's one group at the moment that have been doing a hand sewing circle for years, but quite a lot of the people now don't come because they can't hand sew because of sight and because of dexterity. So we've bought sewing machines for those groups, whereas other groups are looking at we've bought the services of a Tai Chi instructor who can start to come along, engage them and show them how to do a bit more activity.
Yeah.
So people can apply to that
and show that you could actually do it, because I know if I said Tai Chi to various people I know who you might work with, they'd be like, I don't think that's for me. Oh, I'm too old for that. I can't try that. But actually, you know, I think you could. You really could. And I know Linkage are brilliant at this, because I've been along to quite a few of their things. It's amazing what you can do sitting in the chair with some ABBA or something playing in the background.
Yeah, and Linkage tend to do it with an activity on one side and a coffee money on the other.
Yes,
so if you don't
that's
want to do Tai Chi,
why I'm fond of their activities.
Yeah. But if people don't want to do Tai Chi at first, they come to coffee, and then they see other people doing it and see how engaged they can be, and then they start to do it themselves.
And they do it all around the city. I know they're just one of the many people you work with. Okay, what would you like to hear from people then? Listening this morning, how can people help and make services and just make people feel happier, the groups of people you want to work with? What can we do?
Well, first of all, as I said, there's £6 million and we're allocating that out. So people are welcome to apply to the pots that we've got open. So there's one that will be opening on the 1st of September for the Community Kickstart.
Okay.
So community groups can apply for up to £2,000 of goods and services. We're also just in the middle of creating a little guidebook with Happy City, another charity in Bristol, called Aging Well Every Day. And it's a wellbeing guide made by older people and designed by older people.
That's great. Yeah.
We're currently looking for models. So we're looking for older people who'd like to be taking part in a photo shoot in a couple of weeks' time to be in the guide, and we'll be launching that in September.
And do you know what? Do not be shy. Honestly, come forwards and do it. You definitely have something to offer. You might not be someone who'd naturally stick your hand up or push yourself forward or want to be the centre of attention or all of these kind of negative thoughts that are going through your head right now. The offer is genuine, and you could make a real difference for someone else and and for you as well, and it will be a great experience.
Yeah, it'd be brilliant. Thank you.
All right. Adam, thank you. How do people find out or get in touch with you?
Well, after all that talk, we do have a website,
Okay.
and it's bristolagingbetter.org.uk. And I think we'll pass the phone numbers onto your website if we can.
Brilliant.
So you can call us.
All right, thank you very much. Go into the library if you need help or ask someone else. But Bristol Aging Better programme is what it's all about. Adam Rees, thank you very much for joining us.